Welcome to the Psychology World podcast with me, Connor Whiteley, psychology student and international best-selling psychology author of over 30 psychology books, bringing you the latest psychology news, fascinating psychology topics and more each week. If you want to learn more, then please check out connorwhiteley.net/books. And don't forget to like and subscribe to the YouTube video or follow on your favourite podcast app. And here's the show. Hi everyone, and welcome to episode 297 of the Psychology World podcast with me, Connor Whiteley. And today's episode is on what are the mental health benefits of hormone replacement therapy. And it is Sunday the 17th of November 2024 as I record this. So for today's podcast episode is a brilliant one that I've had a lot of fun with, and I'm really pleased with it because we're focusing on how HRT benefits the mental health of transgender people. So this is really important, really impactful, and it really does make a difference. So we talk about that, and this is a very useful podcast episode to know about. But because this is an in-between episode, there won't be a psychology news section or a personal update. So as always, I always love to hear your thoughts and feelings on today's episode. So you can always email me, connorwhiteley@connorwhiteley.net. You can always even comment at the show notes at connorwhiteley.net/podcast. And you can always tweet me on Twitter at sci-fi-whiteley. I really like to hear from you because it really helps make the podcast feel more like a conversation. And today's episode has been sponsored by Biological Psychology. So this is a great, really easy to understand book that answers a lot of questions that you might have about how our biology impacts our behaviour. For example, we talk about what is biological psychology, how do our hormones impact our behaviour, how do neurotransmitters, how does evolution, and a whole bunch of other biological factors. How does it impact our behaviour? So this is a great, really easy to understand book that's very popular, and it consistently sells every month because people do find this book really useful. Also, I just want to personally say I love the book cover. The book cover is stunning. So if you get that in hardback or paperback, then you can actually add a really stunning book to your bookshelf. So definitely check it out. So that's Biological Psychology, available with all major ebook retailers, and you can order the paperback and hardback version from Amazon, your local bookstore or local library if you request it. And if you want the audiobook narrated by artificial intelligence, now you can, on selected audiobook platforms like Spotify, Kobo, Google Play, Barnes & Noble, and Every, and selected library systems like Overdrive, Biblioteca, and Baker & Taylor. So whilst my books help to support the creation and the editing of the podcast, my time is sponsored by my wonderful patrons. And as always, a massive thank you to my patrons. Your support shows that you like the show and you want it to continue. So if you wanted to become a patron of the show and get access to tons of great rewards, now you can at patreon.com/the Psychology World podcast. Or if you want to support the podcast on a one-off basis, now you can at buymeacoffee.com/Connor Whiteley. So that's some of the personal update. So let's move on to the content part of today's episode. So we're moving on to the content part of today's episode. So we're going to be talking about what are the mental health benefits of gender-affirming hormone therapy. This is a great podcast episode. I'm really looking forward to it. So let's dive into it. How hormone replacement therapy improves physical and social well-being. The main piece of the research we'll be using for this podcast episode comes from Dome et al. 2023, because they did a large meta-analysis that got data from 46 journal articles. These articles were based on interviews with people who were taking hormones and people that hadn't, as well as analysis of people taking hormones over a longer period of time. The research clearly shows that gender-affirming hormone therapy reduces depressive symptoms as well as psychological distress in transgender people. Also, what I find really interesting is that the research shows that hormone therapy helps transgender people improve in key areas of social functioning, mainly in trust. Furthermore, the researchers noted that hormone therapy mostly lead to a decrease in the stress in transgender people and doesn't necessarily lead to an increase in a positive emotional states. In other words, hormone replacement therapy leads to a decrease in depression, isolation, and sadness, and doesn't really promote feelings of positivity, which I think is an interesting finding, because I don't think hormone replacement therapy needs to necessarily promote positive feelings, as that will be a byproduct anyway of the process. For example, if you have depression, sadness, and you're isolated, and hormone replacement therapy reduces those symptoms, then you're going to feel better anyway. And I've spoken to my trans friends a lot, and they always tell me how much better they feel after hormone therapy. In addition, Dolinol 2023 doesn't provide a clear explanation of why these benefits happen. We aren't sure if this has something to do with chemical changes in the brain, or from improved body image, or a mixture of the two. Personally, from everything I've heard from trans people, it mainly comes from improved body image, and they feel a lot more comfortable in their own skin. But of course, there has to be other factors going on as well. When it comes to improvements in quality of life, there is some evidence of this, but these results are complicated by the emotional changes that occur during hormone therapy. For example, in a lot of studies where participants are taking masculizing hormones, these hormones tend to decrease emotions, whereas feminizing hormones tend to increase emotion in participants. Since participants on feminizing hormones report emotional imbalances, increase emotional expression, and mood swings. Moreover, there is no clear way to tell how existing gender stereotypes affect people taking gender-affirming hormones. Yet, researchers do know whether these factors do impact the participants' report on their overall quality of life. Finally, whilst Dominal 2023 has some strong conclusions about the benefits of gender-affirming hormones, there are still gaps in the literature too. Since it's difficult to get control groups for good size for randomized control studies, as well as study sizes tend to be small. Yet I personally think this is mainly because the transgender community is so tiny compared to the rest of the population. Also, that the data could be skewed by the studies using a volunteered sample of transgender people instead of other more representative or stratified samples. Conclusion. At the end of this biological psychology podcast episode, the takeaway message is very clear. Hormone therapy for transgender people decreases psychological distress, depression, and it improves lives. As well as this is even more important when we consider the oppression plays a major role in self-harm and suicide behaviour that is scarily common in the transgender community. And thanks to Adult and All 2023, we now understand that hormone therapy helps transgender people a lot, and it might very well save lives. Of course, whilst there are gaps in other literature, let me just say there are gaps in all academic literature. It is the research that proves and supports the importance of this life-saving and life-affirming therapy for transgender people. I know in the US in particular, and I do know this is going to get even worse now, there are a lot of laws going through at the moment in the year of writing this episode in 2023 that aim to restrict gender-affirming medical practice. I've seen some funny reasons given, including how banning gender-affirming medical practice will help people and improve lives. That is a lie, and Dumb and All 2023 proves that. Banning transgender medical care will not help anyone, but it will lead to increased rates of depression, isolation, and sadness, and that will have a knock-on effect on increased rates of self-harm and suicide. So let's not allow life-saving medical care to be banned, because as this episode shows, physical healthcare can have massive benefits for our physical and mental health. So I really hope that you enjoyed today's episode and you got something out of it. I know that I did, because it's always really important to look at how biological factors impact our mental health though, and gender-affirming hormone therapy is absolutely critical in medical transition and helping transgender people improve their mental health. So if you know anyone who would enjoy today's episode, then please share it with them. I'm always really grateful when you wonderful people help spread the word about the podcast. And if you want to learn more, definitely check out Biological Psychology, available in all the usual places. And if you want to support the podcast on a monthly basis, then please head on over to patreon.com/The Psychology World Podcast. Or if you want to support the podcast on a one-off basis, now you can at buymeacoffee.com/ConWhiteley. So have a great day, everyone, and I'll see you next time. Found it helpful. Please remember to like the video and subscribe to the YouTube channel and follow the podcast on your favourite podcast app. And if you wanted to learn more, then please check out the backlist of the podcast episodes or my books at conwhiteley.net. So have a great day, and I'll see you next time.